If I had to sum up Fruits Basket, the final, it would be parents are evil. But yeah, it's finally over. Finally completed Fruits Basket, and this is my review on the series, so let's jump into it. Pre-warning, I will say soft spoilers. It's very difficult to get into the final season without really technically covering characters and what circumstances they're facing, without technically implying a lot of things that's happened in the previous seasons. Overall, though, I think Fruits Basket as a whole was a fantastic series of really heavy drama, really charming points, and a lot of really dramatic and unfortunate happenings that it kind of dives into. It is a series that almost doesn't really kind of shy away from a lot of topics that certain people face, while giving it a slight tinge of supernatural elements, because for those unaware of the entire series itself, it essentially follows a girl named Tora Honda who ends up getting involved with the Soma family. And the Soma family is a group of people who all essentially are involved with this sort of bloodline of people who are attached to a banquet of different zodiac animals. So essentially each generation there's a birth of a certain person who essentially embodies or are possessed by a certain zodiac symbol, like the mouse or the cat of the zodiac signs themselves. And unfortunately, the kind of ties they have with each other that are kind of the unconsenting ties that they have with each other, the bonds that they cannot essentially break outside of, which essentially turns the driving force of Tora herself as she tries to seek a way of being able to kind of break those bonds because of the tragedies that they essentially cause. And it's not just the Soma family, there is a lot of kind of emphasis on the people around Toro, like her friends and family members that are essentially pulled into the mix as well. And as we get into the final season, this really does feel like the conclusion arc. A lot of this entire season of 13 episodes is so centered around just concluding all these stories, giving closure to a lot of these characters, and really wrapping things up excellently. Now, I will say that it does kind of detriment to the pacing overall of the season itself, as it feels like it's just kind of cutting from scene to scene to really just say, here's the conclusion of the story, cut, here's the conclusion of the story, cut. But ultimately, it's a joy to us that have been kind of experiencing this ride for so long to really get time to spend with every single character, which is a large cast, and give each and every single one of them some kind of sort of closure that really does feel satisfying in the end, which is a nice contrast to the previous season that honestly I felt like it began to spin its wheels. I almost had a feeling in the previous season that I was kind of getting fatigued with the characters themselves. I almost was getting to the point where I felt like they were just running in circles, especially with characters like Yuki, who felt like they would find this joy and then go back to sorrow, and then find joy and then go back to sorrow, and find joy. And it felt like he was just kind of repeating himself over and over again. So like I said, to have this very strong and satisfying closure to everybody's story was very much so welcome. Now, I will say, despite getting all these closure and really enjoying and having a satisfying end to them all, I ultimately was disappointed in the main story itself, which is the concept of this curse and how all these Soma family members somehow can find themselves tearing away from it. And like I said, it didn't... While the tearaway as it progressed felt very satisfying, like every single time that snap happens, and you'll know what I mean if you watch the series, every time that snap happened, I was overjoyed. I felt that feeling of relief, and even still felt sorrow because the characters themselves found themselves conflicted and ultimately torn by what happened. The object that was within the center of that itself felt like it didn't have enough given to it, I guess, is the best way to put it without spoiling things. This was a object of sorrow. It was an object of trauma. It was an object of viciousness that they all faced, and it just felt like it was just brushed to the side in the end and like, okay, we're over that. And I didn't have... The series itself gave me so much frustration towards it. And not that I wanted itself to be destroyed. I didn't want violence to come upon it. I didn't want this big revenge story. It just felt unsatisfying in the end. Even though I was happy for how it concluded, I wasn't satisfied in the end. It's very hard to explain. And maybe those that have watched it will agree or disagree, but I honestly felt dissatisfied in the end because not enough justice, I guess, was served. But even still, like I said, every story was portrayed so beautifully, and I got so emotional over and over again. I will say that this season, I regretted binge watching it. I waited until it was almost completed before I just rushed through the entire thing, and it was very difficult to do so. This is a series that is very difficult to binge through because there's so much emphasis on the depression that the characters are going through. There's so much heavy emotion happening, and it's excellently portrayed because they kick in the music at the right time. The music ramps, the emotion kicks in. All of it is so well put together and definitely pushes you to the brink. But at the same time, it's emotionally exhausting and it's very hard to go through, especially for people like myself who has experienced loss, especially with the case with Toru. It gets into her father and her mother. And there is a sense of, if you have gone through loss like this, having that feeling of equality with what she's going through makes it even more emotionally impacting. I will say, especially like I said, with her case with her father, her willingness not to want him to disappear, that the things that she does that technically is what she does in order to keep her relevant and remember him, was something that hit me personally and was very much, I got very emotional over it. I'll just say that. But like I said, it's very hard to just rush through. And so it is one of those things where I almost suggest people, at least with the later part of it, at least with the final season, take your time. Don't rush through it. It's almost too much. If I had to give the overall story any kind of criticisms, besides, like I said, feeling like the previous season felt very much like it was spinning its wheels, I'm concerned with the writer's willingness to really rely too much on parental damage. I felt like she was repeating herself over and over again by the concept that it seems like every single one of these characters, their whole story arc is, my parents were terrible. I can't express, like, even when it got to pretty much the final character they really dived into, it just turned into, once again, parents bad. It's like, we're going to do this again. We're going to have yet another casualty to parents' evil. It feels like literally everybody besides maybe one or two Soma family members and Toru herself, all being driven by, my parents were evil and abused me and treated me like a monster. Now, granted, the concept of the Soma family is that they are technically, in the eyes of humans, monsters, but we could have tried a little harder to give them some better stories besides my parents were evil and Toru loves me, so it's great. But that is really the crux of it. Technically, Toru is a parental figure to all of these characters. Toru is the mother of the Somas in the end. And that's not really to spoil things. That's just really where I draw her as. That's where my conclusion comes to. That's the symbolicness that I drew from the series itself. And her bright and shining nature is what saves people. And I think that's really a great message in the end. The message of the beauty of kindness and the beauty of compassion. And that's what Toru really does present. And that's what she's presented from the very beginning. But even still, I loved it. I love this final season. It was fantastic. It was so emotionally driven. And to have such a bond with these characters and feel so much pain from their experiences is a true testament to her writing. I think she did a fantastic job of the series, and I'm so happy that she got a full adaptation. This was something that was treated kind of unfairly with the first adaptation, and when I heard that they literally gave the speculation that you can adapt this again, but you have to do the whole thing, was a pure joy to me. In a medium that is so driven by source material baiting, this was a great adaptation, and really something I feel all series deserve, honestly. And it's also great to hear that they are going to be adapting Toru's parents' side story, which is not technically a side story, it's just that it was skipped. But again, their whole point was to adapt the whole thing, so they will be doing another series that will cover Toru's parents, and that's fantastic. So yeah, Fruits Basket's huge suggestion from me. It is a shoujo done right. It is a shoujo that anybody can enjoy. It is extremely unfortunate that even though it hit #1 on Mal, people cannot accept that it is as great as it is. And I love it to death, and I wish everybody experienced the series that is Fruits Basket. It is a treasure. It is a treasure. It will always be a treasure, and I highly suggest it. But yeah, that's my review and thoughts on Fruits Basket, the final. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the series. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can, and y'all take care.